Welcome to the first ever episode of Retro Gaming Adventures. Retro Gaming Adventures is a podcast where I share my love of retro games with my family. So I have a library of different games spanning from the original Atari all the way through modern game systems like the PS5 and Xbox Series X. And we go through my collection, and I'll pick a certain game or genre of game that I think a family member of mine might enjoy. So, like for this first episode, for instance, we went through and chose a copy of Little Nemo Dream Master. It's the same copy that I grew up with. That is very near and dear to me. One of the first games I ever purchased, and I had my wife play it and give it a shot, and basically give her thoughts on the game and what her experience was playing it, as well as exploring the history of the game and a little bit about how it came to be. Thanks for checking us out, and I really hope you enjoy. Hello, and welcome to our brand new podcast. This is our first podcast diving into the world of retro games that are familiar to me and have some history with me that may not be so familiar to some of my family members. But before we get into all of that, I would like to introduce myself and my wife, Amy. Amy, tell us a little bit about you and your history with gaming in general.
Yeah. So I've always loved gaming. So I would say that, back in Super Nintendo days, that's it. I'm more of kind of like a shooter player. I get the adrenaline, and I'm also kind of a social gamer. So I kind of like the online stuff. So I'm kind of excited to change the kind of games because you just kind of stick with what you've got. So that's brief. I mean,
yeah, that's really all we need. I'm Adrian. I have been podcasting for about 5 years now. I've done 2 previous podcasts, one called Just a Bit Gaming. That was my first podcast that I did with my friend Ryan. And then after that, I took a little bit of a break and then started another podcast with another friend of mine, JJ, and that was called The Pixel Perspective or Pixel Perspective. And then Pixel Perspective is coming to an end, and so now I'm starting a new podcast with my family, and that kind of brings up what we're talking about what Amy was saying about her history with gaming. Is that she gravitates toward a certain like type or genre of gaming, and I think that's common for most people. Like we have 4 kids. All of them are gamers to some extent, some more so than others, but they're drawn to different styles of games. So I've been very passionate about gaming for as long as I can remember, from my very first memories with playing Super Mario Bros. That being the first video game I've ever seen, back when I was like 4 or 5 years old. I don't remember, but I was really young, and I remember that just having an impact on me that never really went away. And so like it is something that it continues to be part of me, and just the history of gaming in my draw to the artwork and the gameplay and the different systems and the different genres. Like I'm willing to try anything, and I have built just a pretty big collection of games that are genre specific and publisher specific to my tastes, but I'm always willing to try something new and see if it's something that I will enjoy or not. And so as time has progressed a little bit, I thought it would be a fun thing to explore, showing some of these old games in my library to my family and letting them see what see if I know it won't have the same impact on them that it had on me, because a lot of these games I experienced when they came out. So there was nothing else to compare it to. But I just to see like what their thoughts are with these old games and how that might be fun to encounter, like in their experience playing them now and how that goes. So
I think we've been trying to find, because gaming for our family is a really kind of important, I mean, might sound silly, but it's been kind of it's something that our family's kind of known for. And you and I have always wanted to find a way to share it on a family level. So I think this is, we've been trying, and it just kind of intuitively came this way. I think honestly, like as the kids have gotten older, like a kid will come in and say, "Hey Dad, do you have this game?"
Yep.
You're like, "Yes, I do." It's very rare that you say no. But yeah.
For one of my kids in particular, she's very drawn to
You'll see
some
her
of the
too.
old games, and she's been on a Zelda kick lately. She's beaten several of the Zelda games, and I'm sure we'll do an episode focused on some of those games that she's beaten. But she's gone through like some of the past, like Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess,
Majora's Mask.
No, I don't think she's beaten that one yet.
Okay.
But I think Skyward Sword is her next one. So we're definitely going to have a conversation with her over some of those games.
Yeah.
But for this first episode, I decided to take into account a game, one of the first games that I can clearly remember playing as a kid. Not one of the first games I ever played, but one of the first games that I specifically got for myself. And that game is Little Nemo Dream Master. The Dream Master. So, Little Nemo, I gotta figure out where to start with this. So, I had a birthday, and I don't remember how old I turned, but I got some money or a gift card or something or a gift certificate. They didn't have gift cards back then. It would have been a gift certificate, but I'm pretty sure I just had
probably handwritten.
Yeah, exactly. Like a little piece of paper with money on it. But I got some money for my birthday, and I wanted to buy some new Nintendo games for my NES. So my father and I went to, or my dad and I'd never call him my father. I don't know where that even came from.
Papa. It's Papa and him.
We went to Toys R Us for me to pick out. I went there for one specific reason, and it's kind of funny that this didn't happen. It's similar to how I do things today. I went there to buy the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game. That was a game that I was pretty obsessed with in the arcades. And when I found out there was a home version of that, I really, really wanted it. So I went to Toys R Us with the specific reason of buying that game. When I get there, though, I found it, and it was still an expensive. It was like a $50 or $60 game. I don't remember which. That's expensive now, but even then, that was way more expensive. So my dad was like, "Do you really want to buy this game and use all of your money on this game when you could buy these other games that are less expensive and have more games to play?" And that logic made so much sense to me. I'm like, yeah. Like, why would I buy one game when I can buy multiple games? So I didn't get games that often, nobody did. So the fact that I could have more value for my money was really enticing. But at the same time, I really wanted to play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. So I just basically went through and Toys R Us back then had these little cards that had the covers of the games, just the covers printed out on a piece of paper. And you could flip it up, and it would have the back of the box on the reverse side. So you could basically, you're looking at the boxes through printouts, copies of the covers, and then they would have tickets that you would take to the cashier, pay for it, and then there was a front.
I do remember that. Okay.
And there was an area, a lock cage, basically, where an employee would work that area. and you bring up your ticket and your receipt after you pay for it and hand it to them, and they would go back, grab your game, and give it to you.
They had that system for a while.
Yeah, they had it for
Yeah.
a while. Yeah, even when I worked there later on in the late 90s, they still had that system. So the way, in fact, well, actually, I don't think they had the locked cage anymore like I remembered it. It was something different, but I don't remember exactly how it was. But anyway, I went through and started just cover shopping, basically, looking for games that
judging a book by its cover.
Exactly. 100% that's what I did. And I think a lot of people at that time did. You didn't have a whole lot of resources to figure out what kinds of games you wanted, unless you read magazines, video game magazines, which had reviews and advertisements and stuff like that.
Was it still limited because they were going to focus on like the big games, or because I mean it's not like the internet where you can just find anything?
Yeah, I would say it's still relatively limited to bigger budget games. But I mean, even still, like at that age, I didn't have magazines or anything like that. So I had zero reference for games. So my only reference was how good did the artwork look? And this stood out to me beyond anything else. I thought the cover with Nemo on the bed and the flying alligators and the tree that is like looming over him and and the cat barely hanging on, and just like everything about this just really stood out to me. I'm a very visual person, and seeing something like this, like I could put myself into this universe and see how much fun it would be. And then when I flipped it over to the back of the box and looked at some actual screenshots of the game, they were all pretty in line with what the front of the box artwork was trying to convey, with the mushrooms and the toy world with the train. And I saw him riding on a gorilla, and that to me was just exciting. It's like, so not only do I get to control this little character, but I can ride on characters as well. So that was one of the games that I picked up. And I picked up another game that we're not going to talk about today. Could be a future episode. I don't know. It didn't stick with me quite as much as Dream Master. That game was Werewolf. And it's another one that really stood out to me because of the cover of the box. It's a bright yellow box with a werewolf coming out of it or something like that, like scratching a hole in the box and peeking through. That was super appealing to me. So I was able to buy both of those games for the same price as the Ninja Turtles game. So I was happy with my purchase, and I think I was happy with my decisions. I mean, there was a part of me that later on I was a little bit upset that I didn't. I didn't get the Ninja Turtles game. I really wanted to play the Ninja Turtles game. I didn't know none of my friends had the Ninja Turtles game, so I felt like I went without for a while, which kind of sucked. But at the same time, like I really got a lot of time and enjoyment out of the games that I picked up. So Dream Master was obviously the better one of the two, and the one that I really, really loved, and I put a ton of time into it. It was a challenging game, but yeah, with any NES game or Nintendo game, like it takes repetition, memorization. Like that's how you get through those games. But the appeal of it was still there. Like everything about it was just appealing to me. But before we get into the specifics of the gameplay and everything and what I enjoy about it, I want to get some history, about this game, and let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I did a little research just because, I mean, the game, there's not just a game, there's obviously a movie. And then when you learn about the movie, you realize that there's a comic from the early 1900s. So I think it's like 1905 to 1914. I should have written that down. And the illustrator's name was Winsor McKay. And he seemed to be I wouldn't say trendsetter, but he was just he had like Little Nemo was very fanciful and how would you describe the artwork? It's very unique. Like even now,
His
even
style.
over 100 years later, it is very unique, which is what I think has always been the appeal. That's why, 70 years after it had been made, people were wanting to create movies about it.
Mhm.
Like as I started researching into it, because I focused mostly on the movie, it wasn't because I wondered like, well, what was it about this? It's more that Windsor McCay, that style, like it was still known 70 years later. It made
Yeah.
such an impression.
Right.
So
His style, he could tell stories without words.
Mhm.
His visual style
Mhm.
and his characters and world building and his illustration style was truly unique
Mhm.
and something that had a lot of character and could tell a story just through frames and a comic strip. He was also somebody who was driven to create animations.
Mhm.
Um,
Which is cool. Like
yeah,
early
it's
1900s. Yeah.
There was a pretty famous little short movie or short film that
Mhm.
was made of him convincing some of his peers or investors or
Right.
somebody that he could create an animation. So
What that they would move, right?
yeah,
So
through pictures,
did they even
through still
have the term
pictures.
animation then? I wonder. I mean,
I don't
maybe
know.
I
I
might
don't
be
I don't know like the history of animation to that
right.
extent, but I do know that this kind of gives the impression that
Mhm.
he's kind of like a father of animation in some way.
Yeah.
And he basically convinces them that he could do this animation with using 4,000 drawings and in a
Mhm.
month's time. So it moves to him getting a bunch of paper and ink
Yeah.
brought into his apartment there, his house, and he starts creating all of these
Mhm.
drawings and putting them together, and they finally show the animation at the end.
Right.
And it's really,
It's
really good for
yeah.
for it being
It's
something that
crude
old.
compared to the standards we have now, but then
I would disagree. I
really
thought the
okay.
animations were very smooth.
True.
I mean, and it was, I thought it's one of the most impressive looking
Mhm.
animations I think I've ever seen. And that goes to speak to the amount of detail he put into each and every one of his
Mhm.
drawings to create that smooth look and feel that this animation had. And it's incredible. Like, I love the visual style of the hair, how he just kind of makes this spiky hair really
Mhm.
quick and he's able to create movement when people turn their heads, or and he had
Right.
this part where
Or
they're
a
driving in a
cape, it
car.
would kind of like
Yeah.
move with turning. So
And
it yeah.
did you notice that he had these bold outlines around the characters, and he would
Mm.
put details with finer lines,
Mhm.
and he added some color and everything to it.
Yeah.
It's really incredible, and it makes me not. Had no idea about him then. I really didn't know about him until recently when we started doing a
Right.
little bit of
Looking into
research
it.
for this episode. I'm very drawn to his art
Mhm.
style, and I want to. Um,
Kind of surrealist is
it's a cartoony looking style, but it's rooted in reality. If that makes any sense. So but anyway, it makes me want to get a hold of some of his comic strips and
Mm.
go through them
right.
just to get a feeling for more of his art.
Mhm.
It really is something that's it's a it's a world that's so engaging that I
Mhm.
just you can't help but feel part of that world.
Mhm. Yeah. So that kind of leads on to the movie,
Yeah.
like why it was it's kind of sad, honestly. Like, first off, the names of people who took part or was asked to work on it or worked in it and then dropped out. These were big names, and even for the time, and even now, they're big names. And in a way, the movie was kind of not doomed because I mean. I don't feel like anybody didn't do anything. It's just, I think it's surprising that it just didn't work out. Like for whatever reason, creative stuff, whatever, it just didn't work. So I got my notes. There was a producer, and his name is hold on, I got it. So Yutaka Fujioka, and he had already been working in Japanese animation, and it seems like his dream was to kind of branch out into the US market as well. So he created another animation company from the one like that he was working with, so that there could be kind of like US and Japanese working together.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Telecom. Telecom Animation, and it was in 75. And basically, from what I understand, like right off the bat, what he wanted to make it like the first movie, like full, feature length animation that he could present to both Japanese audiences and US audiences was Nemo. And he even flew all the way, and lots of people wanted to do this. This is how big Little Nemo was, Winsor McCay was. It was said that multiple times during Walt Disney's life, they tried to come up with a story or considered making a movie on it.
It's not surprising to hear that, considering what I saw or what I was able to see from Winsor McCay and the uniqueness of
and if you think about
art.
like Disney and animation, and if Winsor McCay was kind of one of the people who would like, I don't know, again, I'm using big words, pioneered or whatever, he was one of the first people doing that kind of stuff. So I could see why something like that, for whatever reason, it just never happened with Disney. Mm-hmm. And so Fujioka wanted to do that. And he actually went all the way to California and spoke with McKay's ancestors and basically got permission to be able to make the movies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, and I think that was in 77. And
this is his way of trying to reach out into the United States market.
Yeah. Because I mean, it just seems like even though like as I got older, maybe we didn't know about Winsor McCay, it was still really well known then. Mm-hmm. So he wanted to do that. And again, it seemed like his dream was to have, to appeal again to both Japanese and US audiences. Cause I mean, there's different styles and stuff like that, how they merge it. So, looking at it now or like after reading and kind of looking at things, it was maybe that's what it was. Maybe that's what kind of doomed it. That was a tall order to try and, marry those two things together. So when I say big name people, like I can get too nitpicky. There are so many people. So like animators who kind of had a hand in it for a while was like Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata. So these are Studio Ghibli, like, and what was funny whenever I was kind of researching that part of it, Fujioka, who was trying to be the producer, and again, he was trying to get Japanese artists to kind of adopt. I don't know if he was wanting to adopt a US style or he thought that, US animators could teach the Japanese animators. He brought big names like Hayao Miyazaki, Isao Takahata, and he took them to these really famous Disney animators.
Who's Miyazaki?
Like studio. Oh, I'm sorry. I just assume everybody knows. I'm a huge Ghibli fan. So if you, Studio Ghibli is a big animating studio. And they have, very famous movies like Spirited Away. Mm-hmm. That was my first introduction.
Howl's Moving Castle. Ponyo.
My Neighbor Totoro.
Secret World of Arrietty. There's a ton of like really popular Japanese.
And if you don't know who they are,
movies,
most people would see a picture and be like, "Oh, I've seen that." Like they didn't know what it is. So I still think that even like pop culture wise, if you don't know who it is, you'd see it and be like, "Oh, okay, I didn't know that's what it was called."
Yeah.
But again, these are famous animators.
Yeah.
And
of the time.
He puts them there. Yeah. Well, and he put them with these other, famous Disney ones. And the Disney animators were like, we don't know what to teach them, because they showed them what they were doing. And they're just like, I don't know what to teach them. So again, it's maybe that idea of trying to like marry these two things. And I don't know, maybe that caused it. And I do notice like they had different, multiple directors. Some of the directors, were people who had worked on things like he executive produced, what was his name? I have his name. Kurtz, Gary Kurtz. So he executive produced things like Dark Crystal, so these are things like that. Gary Kurtz was recommended by George Lucas because originally Fujioka approached George Lucas, because this was at the height of George Lucas with Star Wars. And he's like, hey, you want to do this movie? George Lucas looked at it and was like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Fujioka approached Chuck Jones. Chuck Jones did so many of like Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
So, and even he was like, nah, I think I'll pass. But it was on George Lucas's recommendation to go for Gary Kurtz, because he had worked with Gary Kurtz in some of the Star Wars stuff. And again, Gary Kurtz has lots of stuff. So it was Fujioka and Kurtz. Like Fujioka was going to deal with like budgeting and getting what they needed, and then Kurtz would direct it. But it just seemed to just fall apart from there. Like reading between the lines, it seems like Kurtz was, I don't know, I don't feel like there was a clear direction. We've had Ray Bradbury write stuff for it. Chris Columbus, who did the stuff like Home Alone, he did writing with that. It just, and then Miyazaki from Ghibli, and Takahata, who's also with Studio Ghibli, they tried to help with animation, but Kurtz, it almost seemed like nobody ever liked it. And so people just kept leaving. Like they put in all this work, and this started in like, I don't know, 77 when they tried to start doing it. And then it wasn't even created. No, might have been in the 80s. It was many, many years. And it just never happened. People kept dropping out. And so. Yeah.
And if you've seen the movie, it kind of shows that to me. The movie is not that good in my opinion. But
how many times have you tried watching it?
I've watched it several times, and I don't think I've ever finished it once. I always fall asleep or end up walking away from it. It's just a hard movie to watch. It's dull. The pacing is way off. The characters are not super interesting.
The art style in it.
The art style is really good. The art style is really good.
It's also kind of what I've noticed with a lot of people who really enjoyed the movie, or maybe enjoyed as a different, not the quite the word I'm looking for, made an impression with them, is a lot of people were scared by the movie.
I can see that. Yeah.
So a lot of people, like in the 80s, or for us, it came out in the US in 92. So,
and actually, I want to bring up a point about that. So when the movie came out, I remember it came out a couple of years after I had already purchased the game and already was in love with the game. And I was like, oh, nice. They created a movie based upon one of my favorite games. And I was very excited to see it. But from what I remember, it got a pretty limited theatrical release. Either that or it wasn't in theaters for very long, because I remember seeing some commercials for it and wanting to go watch it, but I never got a chance to. And it just seemed like it was too limited and out of the realm of possibilities. So I was waiting for it to come out on VHS so I could watch it that way. And I never was able to find the VHS either, but I do remember going to a relative's house and they had the VHS, and I really wanted to watch it. So we sat and watched it. And that was the first time I tried to watch it, and I couldn't get through it. Yeah. So it was kind of heartbreaking. I was like, okay, well, I still love the game, so it's fine. But all that to say, the game was developed in tandem with the movie to be presented, as part of the movie. But the movie came out 2 years later in America, where, it came out at the same time in Japan as the game. Right. So they did go together.
July 15th, 1989 in Japan. And then it was finally released like August of 92 in the US.
A couple of years later. That's a pretty big jump. And it was kind of weird to me that happened that way. But I mean, I think that just speaks to some of the, what the shortcomings of them trying to make this thing happen to begin with.
And it was a total box office flop, like 35 million invested, like,
well, I don't think
to 11.
That to me doesn't surprise me. Like, at least in the American market, the trailers, the marketing push wasn't that strong. And I don't remember seeing much of anything about it. One or two trailers here or there, and I made the connection, but that was it. And nobody talked about it.
Disjointed. And like, once you find the story, like there were so many so many people who tried to write a screenplay for it or
Mhm.
anything, and it just kept changing and changing and changing. And so something I felt like animation wise, it reminded me of Care Bears on a level, like how the people were
I can see
made.
that. Yeah.
But again, like the people, like the music was randomly. I felt like all of a sudden there was music because it was a musical movie. And it was just was really disjointed.
Yeah.
So it's just, which is so sad, knowing like the history and all the work, and it ended up like Fujioka ended up taking responsibility for it, and he retired from the company, gave up all monetary rights of everything, and literally just retired. Like,
It seems to
that's
me
sad.
like he was very ambitious and
Mm.
probably had a really grand idea for wanting to do this, but
Mhm.
probably should have left some of the creative decisions to people who were good at that, like
Mm.
a good director. I think the animation was on point.
It
Like I
seemed,
think
yeah, and it seemed
marketing would have been an important thing to
it seemed like there
focus
was an
on.
American director and there were lots of Japanese animators, and it seemed
It's just
like
a language
reading,
barrier,
not
probably.
a language barrier, but it seemed like style differences.
Mm.
Like, and it seemed like the original director, it said a lot that he clashed a lot with the Japanese animators.
Well,
So
that's not surprising to me either, because an American audience
mhm.
is not as they're not going to be as entertained by Japanese created
At the time.
at that time. Yeah, I know it's
That's what you
different
mean.
now, but at that time, they were totally different markets and different people had different interests in what
Mhm.
they expected in a movie. Yeah, so
What do you
I'm
think
not
about it
surprised.
now? Like, it was such a box office flop. What is it about it that made it become such a cult classic? I mean, it was,
Is it though?
yes. Like, like when I went in to research this, that's what I kept getting: cult classic, cult classic. And I guess when I said the word like enjoy was kind of a strong word, it's just so memorable. I think that it was so memorable to people. Like, again, most people that I listen, I try
The
to look at some
movie or the
podcasts.
game?
Yeah, the podcast or the movies.
Mhm.
Like, people talked about it being like either their weird favorite movie or it scared them, and so they never forgot it.
Hmm.
So I keep seeing it listed like in, some blog posts, in podcasts I listened to, they kept calling it a cult classic.
I wouldn't go that far.
Mm.
Just the movie made no impression on me, obviously, but it's not. I'm not taking my personal experience
Mm.
into this account. Like, I don't ever hear anybody talking about this movie at all. Like, it seems like a very obscure, lost to time type of movie. And I'm not going to say that there isn't a fan base out there for it, because I know
Right.
there is. There's a fan base for everything, but I think the fan base is ultimately very, very, very small. I think in order to be deemed a cult classic, you have to have some sort of larger audience, and I could be totally wrong. That's just my interpretation of what a cult classic is. Cult classic to me is something that totally flopped, but now is popular. And it's popular because people loved it for whatever reason. And it's not just a small group, but it's a lot large
classic
group.
is Netflix just came out with this new show with Jason Momoa as, it's something, it might have something to do with Dreamland. And people are saying that it's kind of like a new modern day interpretation of Nemo. So
Weird.
maybe it's
I haven't heard
starting
about
to
this.
bring, if you saw like the thing, you'd be like, oh, yeah, okay, I guess.
I do know that there was a Kickstarter for a new Nemo based game. The biggest reason why that doesn't look good to me, I mean, I like the kind of watercolorish style art that it had, or painting that it had, but the characters were very modern looking, and I
Right.
don't
That's
like
what
the
I was
modern
going
art
to say
style
is
at all.
I think that one of the beautiful things about Nemo comes from Winsor McKay's animation. And I feel like even in the movie, even though it was, they still tried to stay true to the style. And so that's something that the new modern look, I don't know, it doesn't have the look of
it doesn't
Nemo
appeal to me. And I'm not
Or
that I don't
maybe
think it,
we might not
the
be
game,
the market base for that.
right? And the game might be great and everything, but as far as visually, the modern look, the modern character look does not appeal to me whatsoever. And I would love to see somebody take Winsor McKay's original art style and turn that into a game. Like
kind of like Cuphead.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
that would be perfect. Yeah. It's, I don't know. I'm not trying to knock this Kickstarted game or anything. Like,
Right.
and I'll give it a shot when it comes out, but
Yeah.
it's not gonna, to me, based upon the trailers that I've seen of it, it doesn't have that same feeling that I'm looking for in something like what I'm nostalgic for. So, so moving on to the game, I guess they were approached. Capcom was approached to create the game, and they created the NES version of Little Nemo, which has almost nothing to do with the movie, which is kind of
it has some characters. And to be fair, I only made it almost through 2 levels.
Yeah. They also made an arcade game. I don't know if you saw this.
No.
There's an arcade game. I didn't even know about the arcade game until a couple of years ago. And I just randomly came across it and like, whoa, I didn't know this existed. So it's a side-scrolling beat 'em up, basically. Where
when did it come out?
It came out around the same time the NES game came out. It looks beautiful. The game looks really good. You have big sprites of Nemo and Flip. Flip is a character from the movie.
Yes.
And you can control, it's a 2-player game, so you control Nemo and Flip, and you just go through the different levels, killing enemies. Nemo uses his wand to attack.
That makes way more sense than this game.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of weird in the game. We can get into the NES game. I don't know much about the arcade game. I've only briefly played it or seen a video of it, so I can't really speak to that much. But the focus of this episode is on the NES version of the game. Right. So
because that's what we have.
I want to before I get into like, well, actually let's go ahead and talk about the mechanics of the game. The game starts off with Nemo going to sleep, and he is taken to this dream world, which it's kind of like a forest area with mushrooms, that giant mushrooms. They're blue and red mushrooms with little white dots all over them, and there's enemies that like snails and bees or wasps. I think they're wasps.
Yeah.
And little tiny little frog looking things or that run on 2 legs. Them
more.
So I just remember you talk to the main character and then you're off, and this world was so engaging to me. Like, I fell in love with the game instantly. The combination of the music and the art style and the fantastical style mushrooms that you climb on and stuff, it gave off a very strong fantasy vibe that really struck with me. And I could envision myself being swept away into this dream world, going to sleep and being involved in this game world. So that was super appealing to me. But what was kind of off-putting was that you couldn't attack enemies. You could throw candy at them, and the way that you throw candy at them is you lob them up into the air, and then they do an arc, and then they come down and hit the enemy. When they hit the enemy freezes for a couple of seconds.
I didn't even do that.
Well, it's completely ineffective, and not a way that you should approach the game at all. I typically just run through the game and jump over enemies. But that to me was very off-putting when I played it originally. It's like, how can I defend myself against all of these enemies that are everywhere?
Like in some places, I felt like you couldn't even really jump. Like
you don't jump that high. The controls are super responsive though. Like, the game feels perfect to me as far as control-wise, and I think you disagree. But to me, it felt great. It wasn't until a little bit further into that level, and it's barely, you come across what looks like a little frog lizard combination. It's like a horny toad.
Yeah.
Like a green horny toad. He's kind of weird. He's got these horns coming off of his head, and but he's a frog, and he just sits there and he just wanders back and forth. And that to me was really confusing. Like, he wasn't actively trying to attack me. So I threw candy at him to freeze him, and he ate it. And I was like, okay, weird. Granted, At this time I did not read the manual, so I didn't know the rules. I'm just playing it and figuring it out as I go, and I'm kind of the same way today.
Yes, you are.
So I was throwing candy at him, and he throw 3 pieces of candy at him, and then he blows a little bubble out like he's sleeping. And so I ran into him and became him. Like he became. It was like he was my suit. So Nemo's head is poking through this frog's mouth, and you're like inside this frog's body. But you control the frog now, and you can jump high, but you walked extremely slow.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But when you can jump on enemies, and that's how you kill enemies. And it allows you to get to higher up places and kill enemies and progress a little bit further into the game. So then I was able to understand that, hey, some enemies can be ridden or turned into or whatever. So I was on the lookout for different characters like that. The next one that you come up to is a mole. And the mole allows you to dig underground and get into some areas that you couldn't get to with Nemo or with the frog. So you push select button to get out of the frog suit, and you throw some candies at the mole, and you turn into the mole.
I think the first time I did that, I accidentally killed the mole. I jumped on him.
Yeah.
With my frog because I didn't know.
Yeah. Which you can do. You can kill some friendly enemies. But this game respawns enemies so fast.
Yes.
All you have to do is walk off screen
just a
and
little
they come
bit.
back and they'll be back. So it's not that big of a deal. It does kind of suck. And a lot of NES games do this where they'll respawn enemies in that way. So it's like
immediate.
And it's hard to progress with that. So anyway, you get the mole and you go down and get a few keys. This is another thing I haven't even touched on yet. You collect keys throughout the level.
Right.
I didn't realize this the first time I was playing through it, and it took me a while to understand this. But you have to reach the end of the level and then get to the door, and then whatever keys you've collected will unlock some locks. And then it's like, I didn't unlock all the locks, so you have to go back and try to find all those keys.
The game is hard.
It is hard.
It's okay. I don't want to say, I mean, people probably laugh at me being like, it's so hard. I'm more used to, I guess, modern games.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot more drawn out play. Like you can do that.
Which is why I wanted you to play it. Like I wanted you to get an experience for an older, tougher game.
I've always heard, games are tougher. And I told you I was talking with a friend at work, asking them if they had played the game. And they said, no, those older games basically are too hard. And then it never dawned on me, like there wasn't enough space to make things draw out. Like you had to make it hard enough to where you're short amount. So I get why they're I guess generally more hard. And I don't know. Like I honestly looking at that, like the oldest game that I really played beforehand was Super Mario World. And that can be hard, I guess, in comparison to certain things, but not that level hard. And I honestly don't know if I would have had the same experience to be a gamer as I would if I had been stuck, because I think I might have felt too frustrated. And the fact that like I had him helping me, like, so I got a little bit of
it was so frustrating watching her play. Be like, just do this. But I was trying to hold back information as best I could.
He did
just
not
to help her
to
figure it out on her own. But yeah, I was getting frustrated. No, just do this, do that.
He's like, you want me to show you? And I'm like, no, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Like, but in a way that
your determination to get through was pretty incredible.
Well, but then on that level, I can see why you might just like be stubborn to get through it. So maybe I would have, but again, like it's definitely a lot harder. Like you said, memorization is basically what I had to do. But my problem is I went through the first level. And then it's like I forgot all the things. Like if I went back to that level, I would have been like, rats, how did I do this?
Yeah.
So that was, and it took me, how long did I play?
I don't know. It took you probably 30 minutes to get past the first level. The first level, which is not bad. I mean, I think you got through it relatively quickly. It took you a little while to learn the mechanics and learn how.
Yes. And it's not as responsive as I was used to. Like, I know it's because I'm used to being able to jump or to, jump on top of things and kill things. Like
Well, you can with the frog. I would say like that first level, I did I did try to help her because she killed the mole, and then I don't think it clicked on you.
How can if they're just standing there not coming at you? And I'm like, I don't know.
Well, that and like there was a giant wall there that you could not get past, and
I jumped.
I was trying to help her with like when I was seeing that she was stuck. It was like obviously she can't progress past this point. She keeps killing the main thing that she needs to get past this point.
I thought he was a bad guy.
I had to help her. So anyway, and I don't think you realized that you could get out of the frog suit either. So I had to help her with that, like pushing the select button to get out of it. But then once you got into the mole suit, there's a whole new set of mechanics that she had to learn. So the mole digs, but the mole can't attack. And he can't jump either. So he really only is good for digging. So anyway, you figured that out pretty quick.
Right.
You started digging down under the ground and you found the 2 keys that were in underground there. But then there's a part in that level where you have to go all the way left and dig down in what looks like a pit, but it's actually another section of the level. And I think it was I think there was a key down there that you had to get. And I didn't want her to miss it. She was already getting frustrated with the game as it is. So
I was being shy.
She went down into the open area and tried to progress, but you can't jump over a certain cliff with the mole. So you have to get rid of the mole. So I just helped her. It's like, well, go down to the other area and fall down in that secret looking area. And she did. So we went down there and got another key. And then that's when you encountered your third friendly enemy, friendly ride, basically. You remember that one?
Is that the bee?
The bee, yeah. Yeah. And I knew when she got the bee that it was going to be...
He warned me.
Yeah, it's like the bee is tough.
Timing is important with the bee.
Yeah. So there are some things.
Patience.
That's the other thing with this game is like there's a bunch of different characters that you can control by throwing candy at them, and they all have different ways of controlling them. So with the bee, he can fly by rapidly pressing the jump button, but he gets tired. Yeah. So you can only fly so far before you start falling down and you run out of energy. And the very first thing that they give you to do after you get the bee costume is you have to fly up to this one block platform.
You have to fly down to get it. And if you don't know that you have to deal with stamina, then you think, I'll grab that and go up. And then by the time you realize you don't have stamina, they've made it to where you're not going to make it back.
So what
or the bees already respawned and then you fall into that bee and then it kills you. So.
What she's talking about, there's a key that you have to get that is actually down lower than the platform that you start from. So you have to go basically fall down, grab that key, and then start flying back up.
Right.
So if you grab that key and start flying back up, it's very easy for you to run out of stamina before you reach the next block.
It's designed to run out of stamina. Yeah. There isn't a way.
It's basically designed, I think, to have you die.
Yeah.
So you can remember, I better not do that again. I mean? Yeah. So she got the key and then finally figured that out. But it's still kind of tough because the next block that you have to fly to is a single block and it's easy to miss it because it's surrounded. It's got, first of all, you got enemies coming after you. You've got the wasp coming after you. And then you have spikes that you can't hit. So like you got to avoid the spikes too. Anyway, once you get past that, she was able to get up and around and on to the next area. And then I think she went quite a ways with that. But when I played the game later after you and you were watching me, I did a thing that you didn't realize you could do. And I didn't tell you this.
Oh, yeah. He's all like...
What was it?
Can you like shoot with the bee?
You shoot out of your stinger. So when you're flying in the air, if you push the bee...
You're holding out on me.
I didn't even think about it. And it just, when I started playing about it, it was like, oh yeah, I can do this.
You wanted me to fail.
No, I didn't. I was wanting you to succeed. You were so determined to get past it. So anyway, the bee can shoot little black stingers out at the enemies that kill them. The problem with that is you can only do it while you're flying, and you can only do it while you are lined up with the enemy because it shoots the stinger in a straight line. So it's hard to pull off, and your easier, better bet is just to avoid the enemy altogether and not try to kill them. Because there's really no point in killing it, because if you kill it, there's just a new one's going to respawn anyway. Right. So there's really no point. So it's just better just to move and get past it.
Which I did. I was able to get through it.
So once you got, so tell us more about that level and what you remember of it and how you were able to finish it.
You know, again, there's a lot of memorization. You have to remember where the keys are. And I mean, the way it's designed, you're going to play the same level over and over. And what I learned from it is, for this game, it exponentially gets harder. Like, going from the first one, which I was like, oh, that was hard. Then you get to the second one, and I'm like, it took me over an hour. And honestly, okay, I didn't beat it, but I really basically had.
The difficulty spike from the first level to the second level is pretty extreme. Yeah. And I knew that when we were going into the second level. I was like, oh, great. She already had a hard time with the first level. How's the second level going to go? But yeah, tell us about the most frustrating part about that level.
Which one? The second one?
The second level.
Oh my gosh,
the first level, the first level, after you get the B and everything, there's one more key that you have to get and you clear. It's pretty basic. The second level, though, it's like
these stupid dandelion puffs with mean faces, man.
Yeah.
They and the way, like, again, it's about memorization and learning patterns and stuff like that. And I don't have the patience apparently for that to get that. And he was trying to help me. There's just this one tree and this little dandelion puffs that just, they follow you and you're supposed to.
So let me clarify a little bit here. You have to get a lizard that you can ride. No, it's a gorilla.
Oh, you're right.
You get the gorilla, and at the beginning of the level, you get a gorilla and you ride on the gorilla. The cool thing about the gorilla is that he can climb up walls and he can punch enemies to kill them. So he's pretty well rounded. The downside to him is he's big. And so you take up a lot more space on the screen. I also always thought it was weird that whenever you ride the gorilla, Nemo gets really, really small on top of the gorilla. Yeah. He doesn't turn into a gorilla. He just rides on the gorilla.
Right.
And it's weird that he takes up a little bit more space on screen, but Nemo just shrinks into this little bitty character. So in order to get to this tree that she's talking about, you have to get past all these enemies that keep popping up, and the bee or the wasp keep coming after you, and it's actually really tough to get through all this stuff because they just bombard you with enemies. So then once you get to the tree, there's these little porcupine things that fall down, and they're all hanging from a string. And if you hit the string, they look like porcupines to me because they have little spikes on them.
Spiders are scared. They're on its web though.
Yeah, and whenever that's a porcupine.
That is 100%.
That's a porcupine with a weird looking head, bald head.
On a web.
Anyway, I don't see a spider. Anyway, if you hit their string that they're hanging from, they fall down and they come right after you. Have
strings.
None of these creatures in this game make sense except for the ones that you ride on. So I was trying to help her, and those porcupines take like 3 punches to kill.
Right, but if you hit the stupid web, then it falls off and
attacks you directly. Yeah. So, but you have to kill at least one of them to start going up the tree. And when you start going up the tree, these dandelion things that she's talking about, they're little white creatures, saw-looking creatures that float down side to side along the screen. And
they follow you. You can't
they follow you, but they follow you to a certain extent. And this is the thing that I kept trying to explain to her. She kept getting hit by these things and could not get past this part. And I was like, you have to stop, make that thing stop. When that thing stops going across the screen and starts dropping towards you, it's not going to go across the screen anymore. So that will allow you to move up further. So once you get the hang of that system and how that enemy works, it's easier. It's still hard, but it's easier. But you have to get to the top of the tree because A, there's a key up there, and then B, there's a lizard that you can ride, and this lizard helps you progress to the next part of the level. Yeah, you have
to have the lizard.
So once you figured that out, you were able to get the lizard, and you could progress to the next part of the level, which gets you to another B, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So getting the bee this time is even harder. And
There's lots of spikes.
there's these weird crow-looking things that throw things down at you when you're trying to fly.
Yeah.
But it's hard. The whole level is hard.
Right.
But she was stuck on that tree, I'm telling you, for most of the night that we were playing that game. For the 2-hour span that we played that game, most of the time was spent at that tree.
Hey, I eventually
was frustrated
conquered
for
the
you.
tree.
You did. And she was so determined to beat that level, but she didn't beat the level, ultimately.
I basically did, but let me tell you what happened is there was a part where you swim down.
Yeah.
And you said, oh no, you don't go down there. And so there was a key down there that I needed, and he didn't remember that that's where the key was. Because he was helping me. And then I get to the end, and there was no key. Short. And then I tried to go back and died. And then by that time, I was like, I beat it. We're just gonna say I beat it.
Maybe someday you'll go back and beat it.
I could, honestly. Like, I know it was frustrating, but
did you enjoy your time with it?
I did. I did. I really did. Like, I honestly would go back and try. And it is frustrating, but it is that satisfaction you get when you finally beat it. I can see as a little kid, you would have to be determined again. But if this is going to be your game, you want it to last a while. And I'm, I got to progress that far as quickly as I did because I had you helping
in
me.
One evening. Like, if that's like one of the few games that you have, you have multiple evenings or days or whatever to play it and get better at it. So.
Right. And you were there to help me. Like, you just had to like figure it out.
Right. Yeah. So my experience with the game is that I would play it until I got frustrated with it, leave, come back, play something else, come back days or weeks later or whatever, try it again, progress a little bit further. And I just remember spending so much time doing what you were doing, getting stuck on an area and just trying to work my way through it and figure out the best path to get through it. I never beat the game, but I did make it to the last level. And I remember I don't know if you know anything about the rest of the game, but I did play through the game to show her what the rest of the levels looked like.
Right.
I didn't get to the last level, but
no, you got through 3.
There was
5 or 6.
I don't remember. I think there's 6. But the next level after that, you're on a train, you're in a toy world, and you are riding on this train, and the train moves, and it's basically like you have to duck to avoid enemies or move across the train to avoid enemies. It's like a self-propelled or auto-propelled side-scrolling level, basically, where you're avoiding stuff. That level was really hard, and it took me a long time to beat that level.
I watched you do it and was imagining me trying to do that. And there's a lot like that one, because it's self-propelled. There would have to be an immense amount of memorization and remembering how things are and
knowing where you need to be, knowing when to duck, knowing when to jump, knowing all of that stuff. And it's really tough. And I remember spending a lot of time trying to beat that level, and I finally beat it. But going back and playing that game now, after having not played it all those years ago, that stuff is like mental memory now. I can just power through it.
Which was like impressive. Like, he remembered keys except for the one key that
I don't remember the locations of all the keys.
Most of them you did, but it's almost like riding a bike. Like, after you saw it, it was kind of impressive for him. And like, especially if you progress, hopefully we can like put like a picture or a video of like the 3rd level to show. Like, it was impressive because it only took you the first time you didn't do it, and then the second time you played through it, you beat it.
I beat it on my second try.
Yeah.
And that goes to prove how much time I put into that level to remember it to that extent. Yeah. That's still stuck with me to this day.
It was impressive. I'm not going to lie. It was a little impressive.
So the next level, I don't remember that much. I remember it now after I played it, but that one, for whatever reason, did not stick with me. This is like a water level, basically, and there's pirate ships and stuff, and you can control crab creatures that dig into the water, and then you can also control a fish that just swims. He's got these big fists, but he doesn't use them. I always thought that was weird. It's a fish with arms and big fists, but you don't punch anything.
And it's funny hearing these levels. It also makes me realize how it ties to the movie. The first level, I'm not quite sure how it does.
Well, is there fish with fists in the movie?
No, it's not fish with fists, but you have to be in the boat to get to the Nightmare Land.
Oh, okay.
You have to go in the boat, but the train sequence is because the king loves trains, and there's like a whole scene of the king and the trains. So it's like hearing these, I'm like, oh, okay, I can see how it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
well then I'll keep going then, because once you beat that level, the next level is Nemo's house. Is there anything in his house?
Yeah, I mean, even in Dreamland, sometimes he wakes up and then realizes he's not really awake. So, and he's still like in Dreamland in his house, but the characters are there. So yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And I think, and I didn't play this far for this episode, so I'm going off of memory here. Mm-hmm. I think after you beat the house, you go on. I think that's the last level is after that, and you are in like a dark forest basically, and you don't have candy anymore. You have a wand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and the wand, it's so weird. Like they just totally ditched the candy mechanic and writing on enemies or writing on characters, and now you can actually attack enemies with your wand. Here's the crappy part though: the wand only shoots
straight
in a diagonal.
Oh, I mean, I guess in a way I can see that.
He doesn't shoot it straight. If he shot it straight, it would be nice, but he shoots it at an upward diagonal, like a 45-degree angle. And you can't hit enemies that are coming after you when he shoots like that.
Does he say anything when he does it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
All I can remember is like he like gets back and puts his wand up, and he it's because he can't control the wand. Is that
right? And that's how it is in the movie. Yeah,
is the reason why he can't shoot it straight. He shoots it at an upward angle. So I didn't like the wand ultimately, and I would have preferred to have not enemies, but friendly characters to use. I think they would have been easier. The other thing is you can charge the wand. The wand has to be, you have to hold down the attack button for a certain number of seconds to charge your shot and shoot it. So I had a hard time getting through that level, but I always made it to the boss in that level, which was like a king penguin who would send these little penguins out, and he would bounce around from opposite ends of the stage, and you would have to shoot your wand at him while also avoiding the enemy attacks. And I could never get past that. I just
Shazama pajama. That's what he says in the movie.
Oh, really?
Shazama pajama.
I don't think he says anything in the game, but
and his little Icarus in the movie.
What's the Icarus?
The little flying squirrel. The flying squirrel is only in the movie. It's not in the comics.
Why would they have a cat and not the squirrel? I do remember the squirrel on the front of the box. So anyway, that's where I stopped playing that game. I still to this day have never beaten the game. I can't get past that penguin. And I don't know if I ever will, but you
should. And then we should update this video with him beating it.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I remember spending so much time trying to get past that and just ultimately giving up. And but yeah, that's my story with Little Nemo the Dream Master. So as a game from my childhood that I've introduced you to and now you've had the chance to play it, it's taking you down this road of watching the movie and learning a little bit about the history of the game and the history of the character and the story and everything. Like, what's your takeaway from all of this?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sad for the movie because it had such potential. The game was frustratingly fun.
That's a good word to describe it.
Frustratingly fun. And I could see how you would make memories with it. And, honestly, I mean, I guess I'm going to kind of disagree with you. I can kind of see how it could be a cult classic. Like, it's a very 80s fanciful type of cartoon. Things like The Last Unicorn, it kind of falls in line with all of that stuff. So I can kind of see how, if you like those things, like, what is it? The Cobbler and the Thief or something like that.
I don't know. I've never heard of that.
Well, we need to be watching that one next then. Okay.
If it's as entertaining as the Little Nemo movie, then like I can't wait.
Animation stuff. It'll be fun. We'll make it a family movie night.
All right. I guess it's a fair trade.
Yeah. It was fun. And I really enjoyed the whole process. I think that I enjoyed it more after researching it, and to see some of the history behind it. I love listening to your like take on it, like as a little kid. So it's really enjoyable. I'm glad to like, it is nice to get out of my own, the only genre of games that I typically do. So I'm kind of excited to try other things. Not saying that I'm going to like, I'll stop playing.
Right. And that's not the intention. The intention is to, hey, let's talk
Definitely
about a
broaden
thing.
my horizons. I enjoy it. So yeah, I'm interested to see what would be next.
Me too. We haven't figured that out quite yet. No. So we have, moving on from Dream Master, let's talk a little bit about the future of this show and where we plan to take it. We have ideas already in mind for games that some of my kids will be playing and talking about on future episodes, as well as what Amy will be playing. I also think it would be fun if she introduces me to some of her childhood games that I haven't really had much experience with, because I know there are some games that she's talked about that I don't really have any experience with. So it'll be an ongoing series of us just introducing games to each other. Hopefully doing a little research. That's fun. Yeah, hopefully provide a little bit of backstory on the game if we can, or where it applies, as well as just our overall thoughts and whether or not we would have enjoyed it. And actually that brings up a question. Is this a game that if you had as a child, do you think it would have the same kind of fondness that it has with you? Maybe, yeah. I think maybe we both played games for different reasons. Like, games, at least as a girl born, like I really enjoyed games, but I feel like I didn't get quite the same opportunities, which sounds stupid. It wasn't. My brother played it most of the time. It was my brother's gaming stuff. Right. So I got to play it if my brother wasn't playing it. And he was good about sharing. I mean, he wasn't like stingy or anything, but the games we had were because he liked it. Right. So I really only got to play games that he brought in. So that makes sense. Yeah. I get that totally. It wasn't until I got older and was introduced. I mean, I kind Halo 2 was like that. I mean, you ruined yourself when you we got Halo 2. So I kind of feel like it was kind of the same situation for me growing up. These games were mine. Like I was the oldest child, and all the game stuff was mine, and whatever we got was usually what I wanted, and my siblings played those games, and that's just how it went. I brought Mario Paint in because we could rent it. There you go. That's what I brought in. So I'm looking forward to recording more of these in the near future. We haven't really set a schedule for when these shows will come out. We're thinking monthly right now. And then if we have time later on, we might squeeze in another episode here or there. But I think it'd be fun. I mean, again, depending on how things go, like if there's a game that people really want us to try, like, I mean, we could eventually get to something like that. Right now I want to kind of focus on the games that we, right. No, that I at least have some background knowledge of to be able to talk about. So, we'll keep it somewhat limited, but eventually, later on down the road, I could totally see us exploring something like that. Yeah, it'd be fun. But yeah, any final words before we sign off? No, I'm excited. We've trying to figure out how we could like bring gaming and family together. And it's exciting to finally it's going to be fun. Yeah, I'm excited. So thank you all for watching or listening. And I actually want to point that out too. Sorry, we're kind of all over the place with this first episode. We're still trying to get everything in line. But this is going to be video and audio format podcast. Yep. So if you're listening to the audio version, if you want to find us on YouTube, that's where we'll be posting these videos. I haven't set that information down yet as far as where it will be posted, but I will put it up in our description. And my dog's over here gagging for some reason. What's going on with you? Go lay down. Lay down. Lay down. This is just how it is here. Yeah. Man. Oh yeah. we have birds and kids and dogs and everything.
Guinea pigs, so
it gets loud.
Welcome to our crazy gaming household.
But anyway, I will post the information for the YouTube channel on the description of the podcast and vice versa for the YouTube version. So anyway.
Oh, there's a character that looks like Milo.
There is a character that looks like Milo.
Or in the movie. So.
Our dog.
There you go.
Anyway, thank you all again for watching or listening, and we will see you next time.